A parenting experience does not rewrite the letters of DNA, but it may influence which biological instructions are read, when, and how strongly. That distinction separates science from guilt. In the next few minutes, we will build a testable map. What epigenetics actually means, what research suggests about stress and development, what remains uncertain, and how families and educators can use evidence without turning every ordinary mistake into a biological sentence. Think of the genome as a library shared by most cells. A neuron and a skin cell contain similar books, yet they consult different chapters. Epigenetics studies mechanisms that help regulate this reading without changing the DNA sequence. DNA methylation, histone modifications, and RNA-related processes are part of that system. They are dynamic, tissue-specific, developmentally timed, and context-dependent. They are not moral switches that record whether a parent was good or bad. The switch metaphor is useful but incomplete. Genes are rarely only on or off. Their activity can rise, fall, coordinate with other pathways, and differ across blood, brain, placenta, or immune tissue. Finding an epigenetic association in one sample does not automatically reveal what happened inside the brain, and it does not prove causation. Scientific literacy begins by separating a measured marker from a complete explanation of a child's development. Early childhood is a period of intense plasticity. Plasticity means capacity for adaptation, not absolute fragility, and not unlimited malleability. During sensitive windows, systems involved in stress, emotion, immunity, and learning are calibrated through continuous interaction between biological predispositions and experience. The same plasticity that increases sensitivity also creates opportunities for recovery. Development does not follow one road. It includes alternative pathways, social protection, and reorganization over time. Brief stress within a safe relationship can be part of learning. The scientific concern is not every frustration, boundary, or conflict, but intense, unpredictable, or prolonged exposure without sufficient regulatory support. Under those conditions, systems such as the hypothalamic-pituitary-adrenal axis may be altered. Researchers study how such exposure relates to epigenetic patterns, yet a statistical association never turns a child's future into a fixed outcome. Risk changes probability. It does not write destiny. This leads to a crucial distinction. Risk is not diagnosis. A population study may detect average group differences, while individual variation remains enormous. Many studies use small samples, peripheral tissues, and observational designs. Poverty, nutrition, pollution, mental health, violence, and access to services are often entangled. Blaming one parental behavior erases that complexity. Responsible evidence describes probabilities, mechanisms, and contexts rather than assigning biological guilt to one adult. Responsive caregiving is more useful than the pursuit of perfection. It means noticing signals, interpreting them cautiously, and responding with enough consistency and timeliness. It does not require anticipating every need or eliminating all discomfort. A response may involve holding, naming an emotion, setting a safe boundary, or repairing after disconnection. What matters is the relational pattern. Children learn that tension can be organized, help is available, and relationships can survive mistakes. Repair deserves more attention than the fantasy of the flawless caregiver. After shouting, withdrawing, or reacting too quickly, an adult can return, acknowledge impact, regulate, and rebuild the interaction. That movement teaches responsibility without shame. Educationally, it also models metacognition. Observe what happened, identify causes, and choose a different response. Security does not come from a life without ruptures. It grows when ruptures do not become abandonment and are followed by repeated repair. Developmental environments include far more than conversation. Sleep, nutrition, movement, play, clean air, material stability, and access to health care are part of the system. Environmental epigenetics examines how nutritional, toxic, and psychosocial exposures relate to gene regulation. Turning that list into a private parental obligation would be unjust. Families need paid leave, safe housing, health services, early education, and community networks. Developing biology also registers what societies choose to distribute. Play is a laboratory for regulation and learning. In shared play, an adult does not control every move. The adult follows, waits, expands language, and offers calibrated help. These exchanges integrate attention, memory, emotion, and connection. We do not need to claim that one game changes one gene in order to value it. An educational practice can be supported by developmental outcomes even while molecular mechanisms remain under investigation. Adding an epigenetic label to everything turns science into marketing. Caregiver mental health is not a side issue. Stress, depression, anxiety, exhaustion, and earlier adversity can reduce emotional availability, but they do not define future caregiving capacity. Psychological support, shared responsibility, sleep, and reliable networks benefit both adults and children. Responsibility without support produces guilt. Support without agency produces helplessness. A better framework combines compassion, concrete resources, and realistic choices inside the conditions families actually face. Claims about transgenerational inheritance require special caution. Animal experiments provide important evidence about exposure and offspring outcomes. In humans, separating inherited epigenetic mechanisms from prenatal effects, culture, poverty, family learning, and shared environments is far harder. Saying that one person's trauma is directly transmitted as a stable molecular mark for many generations often exceeds what the data can establish. The hypothesis is scientifically interesting. Viral certainty is usually stronger than the human evidence. Reversibility matters too. Some epigenetic marks are stable. Others change with age, tissue, exposure, and intervention. Plasticity does not guarantee that every difficulty will disappear, but it prevents us from treating development as a frozen photograph. Protective relationships, appropriate clinical care, quality education, and reduced adversity can redirect trajectories. The practical question shifts from who caused permanent damage to which conditions can be strengthened now for long enough with honest evaluation. Action can be organized into 5 connected domains: health, nutrition, safety, responsive caregiving, and opportunities for early learning. This framework prevents development from being reduced to one technique. For a family, it may mean more predictable sleep, meals without pressure, conversational play, and professional support for persistent stress. For a school, it means stable relationships, inclusion, movement, rich language, and coordination with services. For government, it means making possible what it later recommends to parents. Imagine a child who becomes overwhelmed whenever an activity ends. A deterministic reading says the child's biology is already programmed. A blaming reading searches for the parental mistake that caused it. A systems reading asks about sleep, language, sensory needs, transitions, stress history, and available support. It then designs an intervention. Preview the change, offer limited choices, co-regulate the emotion, and observe data across several weeks. Theory matters when it improves decisions, not when it manufactures labels. The central educational hypothesis is this: understanding epigenetics should increase collective responsibility while reducing individual blame. If environments matter, relationships matter. But so do time, services, housing, health, and inequality. Mature responsibility does not promise control over every outcome. It commits to improving probabilities, repairing harm, and revising practice. Scientific education must teach us to live with incomplete evidence without collapsing into denial, fatalism, or magical solutions. Before accepting an epigenetic claim, ask 4 questions. Does the study show association or causation? Which tissue and population were measured? Is the effect large, replicated, and clinically meaningful? Is a molecular finding being used to sell certainty the paper never offered? These questions protect families and educators from both genetic determinism and environmental determinism. Each is a shortcut around a more complex reality in which genes, experience, culture, and policy interact. The conclusion is not that parents control their children's gene expression or that biology makes education powerless. It is more demanding and more hopeful. Organisms develop in relation to environments while retaining diversity, resilience, and capacity for change. Care means sustaining sufficiently good conditions, seeking help early, and repairing. Scientific precision does not reduce responsibility. It makes responsibility proportionate, shared, and compatible with the dignity of every family. If you want a deeper exploration of plasticity, epigenetic regulation, parenting, the limits of current evidence, and educational responsibility, Epigenetics, Parenting, and Responsibility brings these questions together as a state-of-the-art compendium. It is not medical or psychological advice and offers no universal recipe. Its purpose is to provide a better map. The purchase link for the English edition is in the pinned comment. The final question is practical. Which condition can you strengthen this week without becoming the judge of your own biology?